man.
I think Noah Whittington listens to the show. I learned that this weekend.
He's a big P1. I pissed him off. I always love when that happens with my team. Because genuinely, I want him to be good. And so you always want your opinions to be right, but when it comes to criticizing something on your team and you end up being wrong, it's a great feeling.
Well, the funny thing is if it you had basically said you're not really sure if Whittington should be getting these touches, maybe go to the younger guys, Jordan James largely.
Looks like he's running at 70%, to be honest, most of the year.
And then Saturday against Illinois runs like a madman and then trucks somebody at the end for a touchdown.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, in this weekend at Michigan, he could end up proving you right again. He could have an awful game, and you're like, hey, what are we doing here? But I thought it was funny that he trucked him for the touchdown.
That was it. It was a great highlight, and it was just hilarious thinking of the conversations that existed in August of, like, can Oregon handle the physicality of the Big Ten? And now that's going to be a viral clip from that game. What a laughable thing we even had to discuss.
Where did that start? And because I remember laughing about that.
It started from stupid people in the Big Ten. That's where it started. People in the Big Ten who think their conference is like God's gift to football.
So funny.
First off, you're not the SEC. You never have been the SEC. You never will be the SEC. In the last 20 years, you have won 2 national championships. How many has the SEC won? The SEC has been able to boast it multiple times. We have 4, 5, 6 elite teams at any given time. In the Big Ten, it's largely been 2, sometimes 3. Ohio State and Michigan last year, sure. The year before that, you had random years where Michigan State was elite and made a playoff. You've had good Wisconsin years. But in terms of being like top to bottom, oh, God, how are you going to survive this gauntlet? One of the most laughable things that was ever talked about. I remember bringing this up in August, and a Wisconsin fan getting very upset with me of like, oh, you don't know, man. You don't know. Like, that's one of the hard things I have with reacting to these games. Like, Illinois sucks. That's a bad football team. That was 35-3 at the half. Oregon outgained them by 300 yards in the first half. I was supposed to be scared of that team.
Yeah.
It was a 380 to 80-yard advantage. They were like 1 of 6 on third down.
Yeah.
That game was over 7 minutes in. Can we at least get, you know who used to challenge us? Cal in a night game on the road.
You're damn right.
You know who used to challenge us? Going up to Pullman was challenging. Going to Tempe on a Saturday night. That was challenging.
And it was a personal
Beat 'em up.
foul that allowed them to score their only
The
points.
only touchdown they got was because Derek Harmon played after the whistle. That's the only reason you scored a touchdown in the game. That's a top 20 team in the country. Get the hell out of here.
Well, that's what the conference gets them, though, is when teams like Illinois have this season, they get the benefit. They get to, actually, we picked Illinois to be last in that conference. They're surprisingly better than we thought. Top 20. Boom. There you go.
Right.
And I was one backdoor score away from covering my big PP pick there. I was like, can we get one more? Garbage touchdown. Garbage touchdown.
Oh, did you take Illinois to cover?
I did. I think
you did,
21.5. Yeah.
Did you? I thought you took Oregon. Let me double check. I know I took Illinois.
Yeah, I think I took Illinois.
I took Oregon.
Yeah. Swag for sure took Oregon.
You did big PP picks. I got Sprague, Illinois. Yep, you did.
Because it was the half. It's like garbage touchdown, and they were 1 score away from it. But
I mean, they only scored, 3 points in the second half? So they tried to help you out. Illinois just couldn't finish a drive.
To your larger point, I kind of laughed at that idea, too, of like, Oregon's going to the Big Ten. Are they ready for the physicality? I'm like, the Pac-12 was better top to bottom last year than the Big Ten was, but you guys had Ohio State and Michigan, so you get all the conversation.
Well, and then Michigan won the title. That's fine. In a year where you won the title, you wanted to take the bragging rights, that's fine. But the title before that one, they had won one since 2014 when Ohio State beat Oregon.
And that's kind of why I laughed at that. And I think almost everybody here on the station and in this market and fan-wise laughed at that notion, too, of like,
it's cold. We're physical.
Like
all right.
You got fat guys who are slow and play offensive line really well, I guess.
I mean, look,
okay, good for you.
It's affecting Washington, USC, and UCLA, so I don't disagree with that point if you're not ready to handle it. But this idea that can Oregon handle the Oregon was elite at the line of scrimmage last year in a Pac-12 that was incredibly talented. Like they're going to be fine against Maryland and Illinois. They'll be okay.
I would at least defend the other 2 of the 3 teams you named. UCLA sucks. USC has done nothing but shoot themselves in the foot. And I would make the same argument for Washington.
Yeah, they've outgained their opponent in every game they've lost.
And just idiotic coaching decisions and poor timed, bad tipped interceptions. Like, so even those 2 teams who are not having great years, it ain't like the Big Ten's overwhelming them. They're just self-inflicted. Oregon is the cream of that crop right now. Now, they have to continue to prove it. And I can say they're tier 1, and the minute they lose a game to fill in the blank, somebody's going to remember that I said that.
This weekend in Ann Arbor. Wait for that show next Monday.
I just don't buy it, man. I don't. I've seen Michigan this year. I've watched them play football. They lost at Washington. They should have lost at home to USC. That team, we knew they were going to lose talent, and I watched this weekend against Michigan State. This is a recruiting weekend for Dan Lanning. It's not just football. That dude is smart enough to know it goes deeper than just we continue our dream season, X's and O's, execute. All of that does matter. He's recruiting against Michigan. That's a mighty big recruiter. And so Dan Lanning, I think, takes that into account. Here was Dan Lanning, part of what he said to Dusty in the postgame here on The Fan about what he liked in the Illinois win.
I felt we had a fast start earlier on both sides of the ball. We were able to get off the field on defense, able to go turn drives into touchdowns on offense, and that's what you got to be able to do. We talk a lot about middle eight, and it's something we haven't really taken advantage of this year. It was good to see the offense go score there right before half. I think that really creates a lot of momentum going into halftime.
He also talked about the emergence of one Justice Lowe. We've been talking about Justice Lowe the last couple weeks. His name has been popping up more and more. Finally got a touchdown this week in the Laco product. Here was Dan Lanning on Justice Lowe.
Yeah, just the guy that we trust. Right? When you put him on the field, you know he's going to do his job. He's going to do his assignment. He executes it really well. Probably one of our best route runners. Really proud of his progression, his growth in our offense.
Justice Lowe's come on, which is really important for them. Holden didn't play against Purdue.
Yeah, he was suspended.
And so it's another player that you throw into the mix of already what this high-powered offense was. They had no Ferguson. He was out due to the injury. Yeah. But Sadiq was fine, and they had no problems there. I sometimes go into the weekend dirt with these Duck games, and I tell myself, did we talk enough about this? Did we give Illinois enough respect on the show? And I would largely say, if you listen to last week's show, you didn't walk away saying like, oh, they gave Illinois that respect. And then you see the outcome, and I'm like,
that's why.
We made the right decision. Everything about that matchup leaned Oregon in a big, big way.
Yeah, there was no stat or number that you could point to and say, that's an interesting number that maybe is an advantage for them.
None of it did, and Oregon took care of their business.
Didn't exist. I think the Justice Lowe conversation is valid because I think it encapsulates the overall feeling and the strength of this football team right now. And that is what has made this team different than maybe Oregon teams of years past. And this was the argument in June, July, August going into the year, is that they're deeper than they've ever been. And that is the one area in which back in the day you could have top-level talent or starters that were as good as anybody around the country. Somebody would go down and you would think, oh, God, how the hell are we going to recover from that? You've now gone 3 straight games without having your best edge rusher, and your defense is playing as good as they played all year. Terrence Ferguson is potentially going to break every tight end record in the history of your program. I don't think he has a touchdown yet this year, so that's kind of a weird anomaly. But he still has a chance to break all sorts of records. He hasn't played back-to-back games. What has Kenyon Sadiq done? You have been without Gary Bryant all year, who was expected to be a big part of your offense. Trayshawn Holden gets suspended and now is on kind of a pitch count, to be honest with you, because I think they're still pissed at him. And Justice Lowe fills in and catches a touchdown pass. Mm-hmm. You have back-to-back games in which the defense at the end of the game with all of your freshman, sophomore, redshirt freshman guys who are the back-end depth guys are playing at an elite level. Like, one of the coolest highlights to me, honestly, from the game, and I hope I'm saying his last name right, the Sione Laiulea interception in which he was on a corner route, turn around, made a play.
Yep.
Dude's like 6'4", he's a string bean, so he's got to fill out, but he was like the number 1 JUCO corner in the country. I remember when they got him and seeing his highlight film, like, that guy's going to be a problem. First time I can remember him playing all year, and here he gets a pick right when he goes into the game. Like,
you did watch his JUCO highlight.
I absolutely watched his JUCO highlight. Like, I think this just embodies what has made this team different, and we can even go back to where we started the entire segment. You know, I have been critical of Noah Whittington this year because he hasn't looked like the Noah Whittington of old, and there's been an aspect of you want to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's coming off an injury. It's going to take him time. Mentally, he's clearly not there. My larger question was, if it doesn't get there, like, at what point do you say, okay, we got 2 other backs back here that we trust and we think can run at a high level. We eventually got to start giving them more of the carries. And then you get that game from Noah Whittington where he looks like the guy prior to the injury. He's running over safeties at the goal line. He averaged 8 yards a carry. He had explosive runs throughout the course of the game. Now you're giving me a 2-headed monster in the backfield. You know how many carries Jordan James had this weekend? 15. You know how many he had last week? 10. That's 25 carries in 2 weeks because you don't need him. And so
Whittington and Lamar the same amount of carries.
Yes, you're incredibly deep. You can give guys breathers when you need to. Justice Lowe played more snaps at wide receiver than anybody on the field this weekend. More than Tez, more than Evan Stewart, obviously more than Trayshawn Holden. You almost got guys on pitch counts at this point of the year because you have so much talent. And that is the difference in this Oregon team than teams we've seen in years past.
The depth is certainly a big part of this. I mean, the only thing I can think about, and I did see a couple people on Twitter because I check our show timeline from time to time.
What are the people saying?
Because we follow a lot of Duck fans
We
and
do.
Beaver fans, and so like I don't personally follow all of those accounts, and so I get to see them on the show. It was just interesting. Like I did see a couple 3 points in the second half.
Oh,
3.
God, shut up.
And I'm
Can we
like,
shove those people in a locker? Anybody got a locker I could shove those people in? You epitomize what's wrong with our fan base.
Well,
it was 35-3 at halftime. But I don't know if you guys know this. There's a new playoff format in the sport this year where 12 teams get to go in.
I do know that, yeah.
So there's this thing that we used to have to talk about ridiculously called style points and how you play in the third and fourth quarter. How much did you beat the team by? Did you win by 40? Did you win by 50? Like, it doesn't matter.
No,
they don't need to do anything. It was 35-3. If I'm a head coach, you know what I'm doing in the second half? Handoff, punt.
Yeah,
I don't care.
run that
Why am I
clock.
risking anything or doing anything out of the ordinary when it's a 32-point halftime lead?
The game is being
Don't even
more
get me
and
started on
more
that Duck fan.
modeled to the NFL. You're seeing it with these super conferences, a
Yeah.
12-team playoff, and now that's going to result in how the games are played. They've adjusted the clock now, so the clock isn't stopping
Yes.
every other
Yes.
play. So it's going to be played more like NFL games.
I would bring up the Gabriel pick that wasn't good in any way.
No, he has
But
one of
like,
those every once in a while.
He throws once of the he throws
Hey, you
one
know
once in
what?
a while, and he
Patrick-
doesn't throw him in the big one.
No, in the big game,
big
and they
game, he
show
didn't
that
throw
they can go in a four-quarter battle and
Yeah.
win, and they can get better as the game goes on and put together a drive or get a stop when they've shown you they have the ability to do that.
Who's thrown an interception in 8 consecutive games?
8 consecutive games.
8 consecutive games.
Probably a lot of college quarterbacks.
Patrick Mahomes.
Oh well, touche.
Well, I just like we're really good at criticize a 29-point win, which could have been easily bigger over a top 20 team in the country.
I mean, yeah, and it's on national
On
television.
national CBS, Brad
That's all you
Nessler,
wanted.
Gary Danielson sounded like he couldn't talk. I
How
don't
many
know what was up
scared
with
Big
that,
Ten
but
fans were watching that game like, damn it, man, they're killing Illinois right now. They're not even close.
Should be scared, though. Can we hang with them physically?
Well,
I'm not sure.
Let me ask you this quickly, and I kind of said it maybe at the back end of the 6 a.m. hour. And this isn't to dismiss that college is college and there's weird things that happen, certainly. I kind of find the whole Oregon, I feel like there is a section or a portion of the fan that has experienced it. You're kind of in this camp in some ways. You've experienced random heartbreak. You're like, what's happening? And I certainly understand that. But I do look at their schedule, and we assume health stays as is, so that's an important factor here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where the hiccup is. And maybe this weekend I'll look like an idiot come Monday and Michigan puts up a fight and they do it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's Michigan. I certainly don't think it's Maryland.
No.
Maryland's going to get bludgeoned.
No.
I kind of look at this, and the reason I feel the way I feel about this Oregon team, despite how it started, is what you highlighted, the depth. And I told Swag this during the break. It's the line play, man. That line play on the offensive side was shaky. They figured it out.
The only sack they gave up in the game was to play Gabriel had like 37 seconds to throw the football and then randomly
time.
got trapped in the pocket and couldn't get out.
And I think most coaches would tell you that is a coverage sack / that's also on the quarterback.
Yeah, you got to get out of there.
You got to get
escape.
the ball out. You
Yeah.
got to eventually break out and run.
Yeah.
And this is different to me. It's not to say that they're going to win the title. They're better than this team from this year or that team from that year. It's just to say that like scared in the back of your mind, is this our trap hiccup game? I just don't know if that is looming with the way this team is currently playing.
The only one I'll give you, because I too have the same feeling about this weekend, which is always scary when I start feeling that way of like, oh God, once I end up getting confident, like,
Cocky
they're going to
sniffing
roll.
dirt,
Once I
yeah.
start cocky sniffing, they're going to lose a game. That happens every year.
Yeah.
So I have Michigan can't throw a forward pass. Can they muddy it up and be physical and run the ball? Like, fine.
By the way, Swag looked it up when you went to the bathroom. 54 and sunny.
On Saturday in
And
Ann Arbor. Yeah.
So
it's
no weather problems.
no weather problem there. And Oregon should be able to run the ball efficiently. They're just so balanced. They have so many weapons. It just seems like it's hard to see somebody completely slowing them down. The only thing that I'll throw at you, and I think it's been a little bit of an overblown talking point early in the season because in a lot of the games, the favorite has actually won. Very rarely has a big favorite gone on the road in 2 time zone travel and lost. Has happened, but not very often.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only one I'll give you. So last weekend, you're at Purdue, short week. You got to go 2 time zones away. You come home and play a game. This weekend, you got to travel out Thursday, play a game 2 time zones away, go to Michigan. You come back the next weekend, you play Maryland, and then the next weekend, you're back at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That game, to me, is screaming a big noon kickoff, a 9 a.m. game.
The Wisconsin game?
With the 3rd long road trip and 5 weeks. Like, that's the only
That's
one
your
that I'm
big
looking
test,
at of
yeah.
like, all right. And it's not that I think Wisconsin's offense is horrendous. I don't think they're that good of a football team. But you tell me, does the extended travel 3 times in 5 weeks eventually wear you down to the point where you come out a little sleepy? Maybe it's a 9 a.m. game and you look like, I don't know, like Washington's looked in their 2 9 a.m. games. It's not an easy thing for a West Coast team to do. That's the only one that I'll give you. But all things equal, kick times are normal. I have a hard time seeing them lose a game in the regular season.
So Oregon rolls over the Fighting Illini 38-9 at Autzen Stadium. Rained everywhere but Autzen on Saturday.
It was a glorious day down there for the
good
pregame.
weather for
Just
them.
beautiful down there.